I got videos for him. It's nothing. We does this. Oh, by the way, hello viewers. Another beautiful day. Hope your five senses work. Health and strength is good or excellent. Alright, look. Microsoft welcomes Fedora Linux as an official WSL distro. Says here, Microsoft announced today that Fedora Linux is now treated as an official distribution within their Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL, with the recently released Fedora 42 WSL image using Windows subsystem for Linux new tar-based architecture are being created and maintained. Microsoft has promoted Fedora Linux to now being an official WSL distribution. This work was previously covered within Fedora 42 cleared to ship WSL image for easy Windows subsystem for Linux use. Those running Windows 11 with WSL2 support can now simplify run WSL space install Fedora Linux 42 to install, and then WSL space D space Fedora Linux space again 42 to run Fedora 42 within the Microsoft environment. So this is going to work to support graphical application on the Fedora Linux on the WSL and other features. More detail on this official support from the Fedora Linux under WSL via announcement on the Microsoft command line blog. We got 39 comments, and you know how that go in the comment section. Let's see what they talking about here. Let's see what they got here. 39 comments. All right, let's see. Who is this? That El Tomedo said this. I don't like the sound of that. The headline reads a lot. He said, I don't like the sound of that. The headline reads a lot like Satan welcomes Fedora Linux to the death camp. anyway, let's keep going here. It says here, and Swastika said this. Only if you are the typical unhinged moronics poster for a regular person. This just means it's another distro option available for easier install in WSL. Looked like Fedora was waiting on a cross-platform tarball-based distribution mechanism, with Microsoft has now adopted. And then who is this? Let's see. Who says? Pi said this. Too late. OpenSUSE was there for a long time. And then Swastika said this. Speaking of moronics poster, yeah, too late for OpenSUSE since Fedora exited for a long time before OpenSUSE. In fact, the time to shut down all distros after Slackware. Nah, all Slack. The Linux distros are pretty good anyway. And then RM said this. Are more like the 5 feet guy who, he says, are more like the 5 feet guy who welcomed the 7 foot under. No, wait a minute. Are more like the 5 feet guy who welcomes the 7 feet super athletic guy, telling him, "You should be thankful I accepted you in our basketball team." Anyway, man, these dudes are funny. Then Pi said this. He said he's responded to Swastika. He said, I am saying OpenSUSE has both Tumbleweed and Leap on WSL for a long time, and SUSE and OpenSUSE are main rival for Fedora Red Hat. So those wanted developers experience on WSL out of the official distro didn't effectively pick OpenSUSE, Tumbleweed, or Ubuntu. And then Sharp said this. Just install it. I can see that DNF5 is much improved. I don't know if this will replace Arch or WSL for me yet, but it might. And then who's this? Sarmad said this. WSL still use a VM, so how is it different from just using any VM like VirtualBox or VMware? Good. He raised a good question. And then Open-Minded said this. Is there any statistics on distro share for all WSL installation? I wonder. Microsoft, M dollar sign, but it's Microsoft, might have it. I guess I did look at it if I could, but I bet Ubuntu is a leader there too. Yeah. Anyway, let's see here. Who is this? Swastika said this. He's talking to Pi. See, because the name is spelled Piotr, Piotr, and he said calling it late still makes 0 sense. Yes, some people might have chosen other distros in WSL. Even it was possible even earlier to use Fedora in WSL. Fedora is now another easier option for those who want that. As an additional example, SUSE was pushing AppArmor so heavily when Fedora defaulted to SC Linux. Now, now a decade later, OpenSUSE is apparently moving to SC Linux as well. Does that mean it's too late for them to do it? I don't think so. Different distribution do things at a different timeline and different consideration on what is acceptable for them. Apparently Microsoft is now finally doing what Fedora wants all along. Great for everyone to have another option. Move along. Yeah, if you remember, I think it was like before the pandemic or after. I remember Microsoft, they were going to Linux, starting to go to Linux seminar. So yeah, maybe that was the start of it. But anyway, and then who's this? DP said this. He's responding to Sarmad. He said this. It is totally different from a user perspective, as each application appears to be running within Windows desktop as normal. Windows integrate in Windows, not a full Linux distro confined in a Windows which contains desktop GUI logins, etc. It would be fantastic if Microsoft ironed out the remaining problem. Slow disk access to Windows file system from Linux. Network MAC address or virtual machines is not present. Serious bugs in Windows management of multi-Windows application. And this is iconizing a child window freezes application. Appears to be a Wayland/Weston to Windows integration bug. No GUI for basic VM management. Setting numbers, then it says in parentheses, setting numbers of cores, amount of RAM, network settings, graphic settings. Then it says no GUI for streamlining complete VM installation with VirtualBox or VMware. I can copy and import complete Linux VM with all program configures and install, so users can just start working with it on WSLG. You get just a basic platform, and you are many command line call away from functional system. It is possible to pose it as a deployment system for non-Linux geeks, and even for geeks, it is 2 times consuming to set up. And finally, maybe the project is understaffed or low priority, as these problems are open for many years, and there have been no changes for almost a year. Mainly just upgrading components. Raise a good point. And then who is it? Then he says just keep piling up without any reply or action. Anyway, and then El Tomato responding to Swastika, he says, I am very unsurprised that Microsoft is defended by a user called Swastika. Still, your regular person is pretty naive. They act as if a number of other things didn't die after Microsoft touched them, as if we were still Skyping each other from our Silicon graphics computer, Nokia MeGo phones. Anyway, and then who is this? It's like, see if I can get all this. And then who is this? Who is this? Then El Tomato respond to Depector. He said this. So it's just like the seamless mode in VirtualBox. And then he has a link. And who else is this? And then Swastika, he's responding to El Tomato now. Someone choosing to use Linux in VM has zero to do with defending Microsoft, Bud, nor does it have anything to do with my name, which dates back to thousands of years in Asian culture. So much of being naive. Yeah, companies acquire and destroy things. You are acting as if Novell and IBM didn't do it as well. I haven't heard Novell name in a while. It says here, just American capitalism for you. It's such a system, and Microsoft is no exception either. And then who is this? Hunter said this. I start using it at work recently to replace my Ubuntu WSL VM. It's really great to have latest Ansible build, Podman and few CLIs tools without messing with PPAs. Really a life save for my Linux mind. Still, I wish I was able to use bare metal Linux. And who is this? Let's see. Altamito responding to swastika. Yes, swastika. It's an ancient symbol, just like a village in Austria. And then both words have other meaning, which are actually relevant to anyone reading this site. And then he responds. Then he responds again. He said, "Okay, so you agree that Microsoft is trying to destroy Fedora Linux? My bad. I got the impression from your first post that you wanted to contradict me." And then swastika comes back again. He says, he's responding to Altamito. He said, "That's the only meaning that matters to me, since I am a Buddhist. Go whine about usernames elsewhere." And then he responds again, "I have no idea whether Microsoft is trying to destroy anything, specifically with Fedora. If I run Windows in a Linux host, I am not trying to destroy Microsoft either. Just doing what it takes to run some software. Nothing more, nothing less." Got a point. And let's see, DP said this. He's responding to Altamito. He says, "No, in seamless mode, you still have two competing desktops fighting for power. C2 taskbar in the link you have posted. WSLG is better since it runs custom on Microsoft Linux." Then in parentheses it says CBL Mariner with Wayland integrated with RDP in order to provide Windows management integrated with Windows and fast graphics hardware accelerated OpenGL. Then it says, and then he has a link, diagram description automatically generated. But anyway, and then who else? Then Missy Hansen said this. I have finally migrated away from any Windows for personal use. Windows 11 was just too much, with too many network federated feeds and features coming in. But I have to have a Windows box at work, and finally took the plunge and installed and enabled WSL with Arch being included recently as official supported. Pretty sure, he says, pretty sure also use the tar based packaging, which I like. Happy to add in Fedora as well. Right now have not had much time to play in it at all, but I like the option. I'm given my work is pretty Red Hat centric for Linux stuff. A good fit. Alma also supports for a closer enterprise fit, though not sure how package. he got a smiley face on it. Anyway, yeah, these dudes are sharing their opinions on it, but Microsoft always had an interest in Linux, but we'll see. But anyway, then who is this? Livinsky said this. He says he's responding to Altamito. He says, when you enable WSL, the window itself will run virtualized on top of Hyper-V, and then the kernel used by WSL is super customized to integrate with Windows. You can have full access to your GPU in WSL without the need to bind it exclusively to VM meaning virtual machines. Says, for example, still have a lot of problems though. At this moment, I don't know if I use Windows 11 with WSL and have a good gaming machine and subpar Linux experience, or use Linux with Wine and have a decent Linux experience and subpar gaming experience. Dual boot solves this, but I don't want that. I want an OS that just works, but it's easier to win the lottery, I guess. Got a good point, man. Who is this? And then see, they're going through these comments, and then he's Sophist said this. He's responding to El Tamido. What nonsense! The swastika dates back nearly 20,000 years. Anyway, and then he says, you want to erase thousands of years of history because some animals 80 years ago, for a span of a decade, use it as a lucky charm while trying to eliminate large population of people. How about eliminating the Christian cross, the Islamic star, and the crescent, or any other symbols that someone may have used in negative connotation? He says, I swear some people are so. anyway, man. Then who is this? TN said this. He says, just have a look in /boot directory. And then TN comes back. He says he's responding to Livy said this. Nope. WSL is an emulator software over NT kernel to provide a Linux kernel space interface to an indexed user space. As I said just before, have a look /boot directory in a WSL machine. Yeah. And then Neo said this. Yet he's responding to El Tamido. Yet 99% of those so-called false community members in here blindly adore and worship Ingredia, meaning Ingredia, which has been as bad against Linux as Microsoft has been. And then JP said this. He's responding to Morpheus. He says, normies are gotta normie, no matter what, and still are gotta shill. Anyway, and who was this? Neo said that. He said, and offend white knights will get offended. He's responding to JP. And then MRG said this. WSL can be avoided for most case with a dual boot system, and better booting Windows can be avoided altogether by using Wine. That is what I do. Well, they came up with some solution for that for this scenario. I think in this comment section, some people are not used to change. I think that's what it is. And then Hack said this. WSL is harmful. Microsoft attempts to prevent developers to migrate to Linux. How about making Windows actually compatible? Adding proper APIs and documentation. Oh, nah. Because Microsoft only desire one-way compatibility in their direction. I know it sounds good on first look, but actually most stuff Microsoft did is in their own interest. Yeah, and then DP said this. He's responding to HS. He said this. WSLG actually is Linux running in Windows, so it's allowing developers using Linux on Windows, not preventing them from migrating to Linux. If you have a Linux only use case, nobody is preventing you from using it. There are many get the slide on here. There are many situations where companies have Windows only application which needs to be used in parallel with Linux applications. So much integration is actually very beneficial to Linux. It's normal that companies and people work out their own interests. Microsoft is trying to extend the reach of Windows by supporting Linux within Windows. There is no harm in that. Yeah, got a good point. Yeah, these guys know their stuff, man. And JP said this. He's responding to Morpheus. You clearly have a catachrestic understanding of what the term white knight means in modern culture. And then JP he responded to DP said this, Microsoft has a history, you know. People don't say these things out of a vacuum. My unrequested life advice is do not depend on anything MS, for MS only cares about MS. Meaning Microsoft cares about Microsoft. And then Han said this, he's responding to TNZ, he said, the way I interpret your statement, you are confusing the current WSL2 that uses Linux kernel in a light virtualized environment with the older WSL1 that translate Linux call into NT call. Apologies if this is not what you are referring to. Then he leave a link. Yeah, these guys, man. Anyway, and then Mez says, I like the irony after the Red Hat. No, he says, Mez says, I like the irony after the Red Hats, he said, Dum-Dums sect had moronically said for 10 years that Ubuntu was at Microsoft feet for doing the same things. No, I bet they're gonna say they were first in on it, or that it was their plan all along. That's what they always do. And he got a smiley face on it. Anyway, and then Volta said this, it seems some morons didn't get your comment, or perhaps Birdie voted down with the help of his other troll account. There's also chance they get offended because they're 5 feet losers. And who is this? Skeevy said this, responding to JP. He says, even their short-term history of Windows 10 and Windows 11 should be enough evidence for anyone not to trust Microsoft. Microsoft Windows 10 will be the last version of Windows ever. User cool. Microsoft, so we have Windows 10 Home, Pro LTS Enterprise, Pro Workstation, Education, Education Pro, and S. User, and then he says, Microsoft, about the last OS ever? Well, now we have Windows 11 Home Pro, Pro Workstation, Education, Pro Education, Enterprise SE. User Cortana, what is Linux? Microsoft Analytics. Anyway, who is this? Vista said this to Altamiro. Why is it not like Microsoft has any control over Fedora development? So no matter what Microsoft will do, Fedora is not going to die because they entered the WSL program. And then Torsion said this, Microsoft Triple E strategy, we love Linux. And then he says, but only if you also buy Windows, then run your Linux on top of our Windows. Would be the same thing as dual boot. That's why you get dual boot to solve that problem. And then Skeevy said this to Vistas. He says they will be shocked when they find out that IBM capitalist blood money fund RHEL when then help fund Fedora and Genome, which make Box, which means we can install blood money Fedora and use Box to install evil Microsoft Windows 11 Pro FUBAR SE. He says which is based on collaborate IBM blood money code from back in the day, where we can then use WSL to install another Fedora and follow the spiral of blood money collaboration virtualization all the way back to, he says it is all blood money that put the red in Red Hat. Then he says just in case some of y'all need that. Anyway, and then he got the 3 smiley face. You know, like when you do something, you got you look into the sky like you don't know nothing. Anyway, and who is this? Lato said this. He says, look, I can barely understand your comparison. Chronicle and Microsoft have a serious partnership centered around Azure the deal looks so big that at some point some believe Microsoft was going to just buy Conical. Here we're just talking about adding an option for Windows end users and devs. Please think more. Please think more or express yourself better. Good point. Yeah. Anything else? I think that's it. So yeah, those are all the comments, man. They just sound off on it, but I mean, Microsoft had an interest in Linux. I think it was a couple of years ago. You know, they were starting to go to seminars to learn more. You know, so they choose Fedora. You know, so maybe they did that to like solve the dual boot issue. That sometimes when you if you install like Ubuntu on top of Windows 11, you know, you might run into a problem. So maybe they did that for that reason. So yeah, and just because they use Fedora, it doesn't mean that all other operating systems are finished. No, they're still good. They're still using them. You can still use them. It's just Microsoft picked this one, you know, for their, maybe they like this one better. You know, maybe they tried a whole bunch of Linux and it's okay, we like this one better. So yeah, but other than that, I think it's still good news though. At the end of the day, you know, so you can install Fedora Linux on top of Windows 11 and 10 or whatever operating system you're using. But anyway, I'm gonna leave this video for y'all to enjoy though. Nice talking to you people again. Crystal, Star Wars, Star Trek, Dark Side. Peace.